Hello everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Blessing Ebietoma. In today's video, we'll be making this stylish blazer jacket. This is the part 1 of this tutorial and it is the pattern drafting video. It is very detailed and it is beginner friendly. If you have not subscribed to this channel already, do that now so you won't miss out when I upload the part 2. Let's get started. For this tutorial, we'll be making use of this crepe fabric, and 2 yards or 2.5 yards of fabric should be enough for you depending on your size. Make sure that the crepe fabric you buy isn't too stretchy or too thick for you to get the best outcome. The first thing you need to do is to draw out a starting line. That is where all the marks will be starting from. And the next line you want to draw is your half length. I marked out my underbust, which is the 13 inches I ruled out, but that line will be irrelevant because I decided to draft the back pattern first instead of the front pattern. We are drafting the back pattern first because we would need the back pattern to complete the front pattern since we are drafting a blazer jacket. Okay, so now you mark out your shoulder measurement. The neck width I mark out is 3 inch and I came down by my shoulder slope 1 inch, and I'll connect it to the 3 inch. Now I'm going to come down by my armhole depth. This depends on your measurement and is usually gotten by dividing your bust circumference by 6 inches then plus 1.5 inches. It will give you your armhole depth. I'm just marking my shoulder measurement again. Then I'm going to mark the 7.5 inch here again just to enable me create a straight line. Can you see? So now I'm going to mark 8.5 inch, which is my 7.5 inch armhole depth plus my shoulder slope, making it 8.5 inch. I'm going to draw a straight line across like so, and that part will be my chest line. I've already marked out my full length, but it's not visible at the moment. My neck depth is 2 inch. The neck width is 3 inch. This is the full length. The length I used is 30 inches for my jacket. 30 inches. Now you are going to mark your bust measurements and you are going to connect it like this because this is the back pattern. You are also going to mark your nipple to nipple measurement. Mine is 4 inches. I'm just marking 4 inches from this to the half length. Can you see? From the chest line to the half length. Then I am going to extend it from the half length by 4 inches. I'm going to extend the dart from the half length by 4 inches. Then I'm going to mark 4 inch or again, which is my nipple to nipple measurement. Then I'm going to connect it like so. So the dart is from your chest line to your half length, then you extend it by 4 inches. Okay, now I'm just marking half inches from both sides of my half length measurement, as you can see. Then I'm going to connect it to the 4 inches I extended it to. I'm going to connect it like so, and then I'm going to connect it to the chest line. This is totally optional. It depends on what you want. I don't want my dart to go all the way to the end of my jacket. I want to stop the dart here, and that is why I extended it by 4 inches. Okay, so now that line, like I said, is irrelevant. I'm going to mark my waist measurement in this half length. Then I'm going to mark 2-inch seam allowance. Okay, I'll add my 2-inch seam allowance. Then I'm going to replace this dart like so. I'll replace it after the seam allowance. So for the same thing, your bust, you mark your bust measurements, you put your 2-inch seam allowance. So what I'm going to do now, I'm coming down by my hip line, 9 inches for my hip line. That is where I am going to mark my hip measurements. This is it, hip line. So I'm going to mark my hip measurement here, 40. I'm marking 10, then plus 2 inch. Then I'll just mark the same thing at the end of the jacket. So like I said, the jacket length is 30 inches. So now I'm just going to connect every line like so. Can you see what I'm doing? I connected the bust to the waist, then the waist to the hip. So there you go. Now the next thing we want to do is to cut this out. So can you see that the back pattern is ready? The next thing I want to do, I'm coming in from the waistline by half inches. Then I'm going to connect it like this. Then I'll also connect the other side downwards. This helps to give your jacket a very, very good look at the back. But it is also optional, but I advise you do this. If you do this, that means your jacket is going to have line in the middle of the back, okay? But if you don't want it to have line in the middle, then you just put the pattern on your fabric, then you cut unfold. But since I've snatched the waist inward like this, definitely it's going to have a line at the back. Now this is the front pattern. From the up, you are going to come down by 6 inches. From the side, I came in by 4 inches already with my biro. I just use my marker to make it more visible. So now I'm marking points around my bust point. From your shoulder to your nipple point is your bust point. Then I marked points around my half length. Then I'm just labeling it. At the same time, I'm going to use the same neck width, 3 inches for the neck width. I marked my shoulder measurements. Then I'm coming down again by my armhole depth. My armhole depth is 7.5 inches. I'm marking my shoulder measurement again, 7.5 inches, so I can draw a straight line. Can you see what I'm doing? Yes, you're going to do the same thing. Now, you are going to also draw a straight line across. And for me to get an accurate straight line, I'm going to plus my shoulder slope plus my armhole depth, which is 8.5 inches. Shoulder slope is 1 inch. Armhole depth is 7.5 inches. My armhole depth is 7.5 inches. So look at what I'm doing. I am connecting a straight line, and I'm going to label that place chest line. Now I'm going to take my bust measurement like so. Then I am going to divide my armhole depth by 2 with my tape, just like how you are seeing, and I'm going to mark a point. Then I'm going to go in by half inch. So this is the difference between the front armhole and the back armhole. It's going to have a curve. Can you see how I place my curve rule? We are going to place it until the 3 points are aligning. Now I am going to connect them together like so. The next thing that we want to do is to mark my nipple to nipple measurement, but this one is quite different. We'll be starting from the bust point instead of the chest line. The back was the chest line, the front is the bust point to the half length. Now we are going to extend the dart again from the half length by 4 inches. We are going to extend it by 4 inches. That is where my dart will stop. Can you see what I'm doing? I'm going to connect it upwards. That is where my dart would stop. I don't want the dart to go all the way to the down. I want the dart to stop around where my pocket would be. So now I'm marking half inch on my half length, Then I'm going to come down by 1 inch from the bust point. Can you see what I did? I will come down. So now the dart is going to go all the way from the half length to the 1 inch that I came down by after the bust point. So you go ahead to do the same thing. Then you connect it downwards to the 4 inch you extended the dart. But you can also extend your dart all the way to the end depending on what you want. I don't want the line to be obvious all the way to the end. I just want the waist to be snatched. Then the pocket is going to be at that point. Okay? So now we are going to take measurements, but the measurements will start from the line you drew out from your after that 4 inch. That is where the measurement will start from. So I just marked my waist measurement. Can you see that is the bust measurement already? I'm going to add my 2-inch seam allowance. This dart here now, we are going to replace it. I'm just going to mark my hip measurement at the end of the jacket. Then I'm going to put 2-inch seam allowance. I'm using 2-inch seam allowance because I don't want the jacket to be tight. I want it to be free as possible. Can you see that the jacket length is 30? The front and the back jacket lengths are supposed to be the same. Can you see? I'm just placing them so you can see. That is the front and this is the back. Can you see that they are the same length? That is what yours should be like too. So now I'm going to connect all the lines together. So for my neck width is 3 inch and my neck depth in front is also 3 inch. That is the difference. The back neck depth is 2 inch while the front neck depth is 3 inch. The neck width is constant. The front and the back neck width is 3 inch. We didn't have zipper allowance at the back, remember? So now I'm going to extend this point by 1 inch. This is going to serve as the button allowance. I've extended it out by 1 inch after that line we drew out. So now I extended it out by 1 inch. Then I'm going to connect the neckline like so. Can you see what I'm doing? Do the exact thing. Now we want to go to the most complex part, which is the lapel. I want you to pay close attention, okay? So now the next thing we want to do is to extend this line again, depending on what you want. But first, I'm going to determine my break point. That is where my collar would stop. I want 15 inches. I want my break point to be 15 inches. That is where the collar would stop. Then I'm going to mark points there. This also depends on what you want. This is where I want the collar to stop for mine. So now, can you see what I'm doing? Connect the neckline from that point you made now all the way to the existing neckline. Can you see? This is what you should do. So this is the break point. Now we are going to extend this point. Me, I'm using 2 inches because I want the lapel to be wide like the style we are recreating. So I extended it out by 2 inches. This is 2 inch. Can you see? I extended it out by 2 inches. Now, from that 2 inches, now I'm going to connect it back to the break point. I'm just making the line more visible so you see it clearly. So now we are going to connect that 2 inch to the break point like so. There you have it. That is the lapel. This depends on how wide you want your lapel to be. It can be more than 2 inches, it can be 3 inches, it can be wide 1 inch. So now this is why we drafted the back pattern first. You are going to measure the neck like this. Can you see? Measure the neckline. I have about 4 inches. So you will put this aside. Now we are going to extend it by 4 inches. The front neckline, don't do it like this. No, this is wrong. You are going to follow the existing slanted line. Can you see what I'm doing? Then you are going to mark the point, the 4 inch, like so. So I have marked the 4 inch. Then I'm going to connect it. Can you see? Don't do it like this. Follow the existing slanted line. That is the only way the collar will be balanced. Can you see that it's a slanted line? Now I'm going to come backwards by ½ inch. This is to enable the collar sit properly. Now I'm going to connect it to the existing line. The first line becomes irrelevant. I'm going to mark it out because it is no longer useful. Okay, this line also is no longer useful. I'm just marking it so you know. Now I am going to extend this collar. Don't do it like this. It should follow the existing slanted line. Okay, I'm going to extend it by 4 inches. And this also depends on what you want, how wide you want your collar to be. I want my collar to be as wide as 4 inches. That is why I am extending it by 4 inches. And make sure that it is not straight. It should be slanted like this. Can you see how I'm placing the ruler? It should just go like that. So now that we've extended the width of the collar, I'm going to come up for the notch collar, the notch. I'm going to first of all go in by ½ inch. Can you see? I went in by ½ inch. Now I am going to come up again by ½ inch. Then I'm going to connect a slant. Can you see what I'm doing? I'm going to connect it like this, a slant. Then after connecting the slant, I am going to connect it like so. Just pay attention to what I'm doing. Using a curve, I'll connect it like so. The notch also depends on what you want. I don't want the notch to be too much. That is why I used ½ inch. So I now went in again by quarter inches. So almost 1 inch, but not 1 inch. That is 3/4 inches because I wanted the notch to be more slanted. So I went in again by quarter 1 inches. So this is the pattern. The front pattern is ready. You don't need to do any other thing but to cut it out. Can you see how I'm cutting it out? Please pay attention so you don't destroy the pattern. I'm just going to cut it out like so. And every other part of the pattern, we are going to cut it out. Then we are going to transfer it to fabric. So now you are just going to place it, you pin it to your fabric. But I am extending the length by 1 inch. Instead of just simply adding ½ inch to the end, I'm extending the length by 1 inch because I'm going to make the lining shorter. I'm going to make the lining shorter to make it very, very neat inside. Then what you are going to do, the sides, you are going to add quarter of an inch or ½ inch, except the side that you will be stitching the front and back together. I hope you understand. So this part I'm cutting now, you add quarter of an inch, but this part you are not going to add any quarter of an inch because you've already added seam allowance to it. So this is the front part, the back pattern. The back, I've already attached the lining. I've cut out the lining. So but I'm going to reduce the length of the lining. I just cut out the exact length already. I'm reducing it by ½ inch. But after reducing it by ½ inch, I found out that I wanted it to be more shorter So I marked out 1/4 inch again. I'm going to remove the pin now, and I'm going to arrange it very well and mark out 1/4 inch. I increased the fabric, the actual fabric, by 1 inch. Then I reduced the lining by 3/4 of an inch. I hope you understand. I did not reduce the lining piece by 1 inch. Instead, I reduced it by 1/4 of an inch. So I'm just going to cut it out like so. Lining is a little bit different because the lapel, I want the fabric, the actual fabric, to be in the lapel. I'm going to split the pattern. Now look at what I'm doing. I'm marking the front part, the front of my fabric, because the front and the back look alike. I'm going to get the midpoint of my shoulder measurement like so. Then I'm going to connect it to the bust point. I'll also connect the end of the dart to the end of the pattern like so. Now we are going to cut it out. I'm going to cut the dart out because the part where the lapel is, I want it to be the actual fabric because I don't want the lining to show. I don't want the lining to show. That is why I am splitting it. But I will not be splitting the front because I don't want the dart to go all the way to the end of the jacket in the actual fabric. I hope you understand me. So now I'm going to do exactly what I have said. I will use this part now, this part that has the lapel. I'm going to do the exact thing that I did. I would cut it out with an extra allowance. Can you see that I did not cut the exact pattern? I left 1/4 of an inch on both sides, and for the end, I also left 1 inch. But now I am reducing it by 1/4 of an inch again. I'm reducing it by 1/4 of an inch because the lining all has to be uniform. Then I will also do the same thing for this other side. Now this is the side front. The side front, I want it to be lining. The other part why I use the actual fabric is because I do not want the lining to show in the lapel. I just hope you understand. So now can you see that I added 1/4 of an inch on all side except the side where the armhole is. You don't need to add any allowance to that part because you've already added 2 inch seam allowance. Okay, I'm going to keep this aside, and this is the back lining. You don't need ceremony for the back lining, just cut it out like so. And this is the collar. Can you see how I'm placing it? Fold your fabric into 4 first before placing it. So that part that you are pinning now, it does not have any opening. So fold your pattern into 4 and place it like this, just like the way I'm placing it. Pin it down so it doesn't move. You leave 1/4 of an inch or ½ inch all around the collar so you will have something to stitch on. Don't cut the exact pattern. Now we've cut out the collar pattern. I'm going to cut stay, just one piece of stay. I don't want to put stay on the lining piece. I just want to put stay on the actual fabric. I don't want it to be too thick. If it's too thick, the lapel or the collar it will not relax. It will just be standing because my crepe fabric is thick, not too thick, but it's already thick. So we are going to put stay or interface. You put interface on only the actual fabric. Can you see that the back lining, there's no interface there? I did not put interface. Even the front lining, there won't be any interface. I want it to relax. Now this is the sleeve. You mark a straight line out first. For the sleeve length, you are going to mark your bicep line. I came down by 5 inch for the bicep line. Then I'm going to connect a straight line like so. Then I'm going to go in by 4 inches. I'm going to mark points under 4 inches. Then I'm going to divide using my tape. I will divide the 5 inch by 2. Then I will mark points here. Can you see what I'm doing? Now I'm going to check my armhole circumference like so. I'm going to just check and get it. I have about 10.5 inch. Then now I will put my curve rule like this, and I will connect a curve from up to that point I made. Then I will flip it again like so. Just look at what I'm doing. It's very easy. You can also use your free hand to get the sleeve, but if you don't want to use free hand, you can draft it like this. Then just flip your pattern upwards and then connect it like so. I'm just going to make this more visible with my chalk, and there you have it. Now the armhole you measured, this is where it's going to come in place. You are going to check the bicep line to see if it is the same or it is more. For my case, it is more. I'm just going to mark it. This is the point that I need. That's the point that I need. That is the point that I need to go all the way from one point of my armhole to the other points of my armhole. Remember, this is on fold. When you stitch the front and the back together, it is going to go round the two armhole. I hope you understand. So now I'm just going to make this more visible with my chalk. Then after that, I'm going to mark the length of my sleeve. The length of my sleeve is 23. I will mark points around 23 inch, and I'm going to connect a straight line. After marking out the sleeve length, the next thing you want to do is to mark out the seam allowance. So I'm going to be adding 2-inch seam allowance. I'm just going to mark 2-inch all the way, and then after marking the 2-inch, I'm going to use my ruler to make the line more visible. Then once I have marked out the actual sleeve length and the seam allowance, altogether I will be having 25 inches. The next thing you want to do is to mark your elbow. You mark your elbow. Mine is 13 inches. You're just going to mark a line across, and then now you are going to mark your first round sleeve, and then you're going to mark your second round sleeve around your elbow. I'm just going to mark it, and I'm going to add 1.5-inch seam allowance. The next, I'm going to mark my wrist, but I'm not going to mark this point here, because if I mark this point, there's no way it will come out of my hand, you get. So look at what I am measuring. Do you see what I'm measuring? This is how I would measure it. This is how you should measure it. This way you can wear it and you can pull it up. But if you measure this part, you can't wear it, okay, unless the material is very very stretchy, and this is a blazer self, it's not supposed to be too tight. Okay, so I have 10-inch there. I'm just going to mark 5. Then I'm going to add my seam allowance. Now we are going to connect the lines together. So after connecting the lines together, I'm going to mark the measurement I have around my wrist, and I'm going to replace it in around the seam allowance. Then I will connect the lines together. So the next thing you want to do is to cut this out. But before cutting this out, I'm just going to check again. This is very important. That is why I am laying emphasis on it. If you are done cutting your sleeve and you find out that the measurement you have around the cap of the sleeve is not the same as the one of your armhole, then the solution is to start joining, and you don't want that. So make sure that it is accurate. So now this is our sleeve. I hope you found this video very very useful. This is the part 1. If you've not subscribed to the channel, do so already. And I've gone ahead to cut out the lining. Of course, I reduced it by 3/4 inch again. So this is all the fabric put together. If you would love to see how I transform all of these pieces into this gorgeous blazer on your screen, subscribe, turn on your post notification. I'll see you in the part 2. Thank you for watching.